You're listening to dialectradio.co.uk.
My name's Thomas Barlow. My cooperative is called Real Media. We launched in 2014 with several years working for Real Fair before that, which became Real Media. Real Fair was a welfare rights blog, and now we've turned into a full media organisation that produces videos, has social media feeds. We aggregate other independent media from around the internet, and we've done a variety of stories, from whistleblowing stories in investigative journalism to media critique, and a lot of stuff on climate change. And we try and cover the gamut, basically, and we're trying to set up a new way of doing media in the 21st century.
But I mean, a little group like you, how could you ever compete against the monolithic giants, the Murdochs, people like that in London?
Well, Murdoch is losing a lot of money currently, and, he retains the press side of his operation purely for political power.
How can he carry on just losing money?
Yeah, I'm not sure he can. This is what was shown up by Leveson, that there was a potential move to de-seat him and sell off the press titles and just keep Sky, which is the one that's making the money. The fact is the future of the press is uncertain, and in these times we have a lot cheaper way to access. It's a bit like the printing press all over again. Suddenly we've got a cheap way with people who care about it, who are well trained, who do it in their spare time or for small sums of money. And as we build up, we are preparing for a launch in October of something very, very special with a lot of celebrities, a lot of full-scale support from across the sector, and this is what is going to turn into a new model of funding journalism in the 21st century.
Well, you say funding, but even people like The Guardian, The Independent's just folded through really lack of advertising.
Yeah, well, there's a lack of advertising because they've also got a lack of circulation, and the circulation comes from the fact that The Independent supported the Conservatives in the last election. The Guardian has been seen as anti-Corbyn and is hemorrhaging readers. The fact is that the press seems biased and seems to be taking editorial lines out of sync with the largest age cohort in Britain now is millennials. They represent 20 million people in this country. It's now a larger age cohort than the baby boomers.
So hang on, who are the millennials?
Millennials are people born after 1982 to the mid-90s. Yeah, the millennials are people like myself who came of age at 18 on the millennium. They're young, internet savvy, have grown up mostly only ever knowing PCs and internet, and they have a different approach. Over 55% of them get their news and information from social media totally. They do not go to single news sources. They do not buy. The understanding the old press has of how to reach these is completely limited by the fact that the doors are closed for our generation to get into those organisations.
But can you actually turn the advertising revenue in order to support yourself?
Well, we won't do it through advertising revenue. What has been shown to work in America especially, they're 6 or 7 years ahead of us with new media, is, say, an organisation like the Young Turks, which has 250 million views per month. They do it on a subscriber basis, or what is called the freemium model. You give most of your content away for free and you give a certain amount away paid. People don't pay you for the premium stuff. They do a bit, but mostly they pay you because they recognise what you're doing as a service, and that is the way that the modern economy, it's the way Spotify works, it's the way Wikipedia works, it's the way the biggest organisations in the modern world work. It's something the press hasn't caught up with. They're not going to get it. And the Guardian's tried to move towards a membership model, but the problem is they tried to move towards a membership model just at the same time as they alienated a great deal of their readership base. The important thing is that you provide a service for your readership, and that's not advertisers, it's not corporate sponsors, it's not the state, it's going to be the people. And so it's a new democratic age, but it works. It's already making money. You're seeing it in hyper-local organisations, you're seeing it in small media organisations like Novara Media and other places across the UK already, and you're seeing it in Amsterdam and Holland and Europe, but America especially is leading the way. They have got 20 large independent media organisations, and those are the ones that are powering, for instance, Bernie Sanders currently, because the mainstream media will not give Bernie Sanders any good coverage whatsoever. Now, I'm not saying that media has to be political, but what happens, as the Young Turks like to say, is facts are progressive. So if you're willing to present facts, commentary, everyone on the internet nowadays can fact check things, so it's hard to present the level of bias. It's maybe not bias, it's often been described as, the British press is always taken an interesting editorial line to engage its readership. So whether that's the Daily Mail, the Guardian, the Telegraph, it's always been clearly partisan, but, as a part of a rambunctious debate. But that's not good enough any longer. People are looking for...
I don't know what you're quite getting at there, because I certainly see it as very London-centric. I think of it as the London media that's doing all the national and international coverage.
You're right, it is very London-centric, and that's a great tee-up to say, look, our organisation is based in... we have members in London, but also in Bristol, Manchester, Glasgow. The country we live in is not just London, and in fact, even the people who are living in London feel disassociated from it now. You see it with politicians, you see it with all other parts of the establishment, but you see it with the press and their unwillingness to question certain shibboleths. And it's why people like Nigel Farage get so much support for saying, North London liberal elite, because everyone does feel disconnected from that. I think the press are so wildly disconnected that even when The Guardian does things like diversity recruitment, they end up getting two white ladies, who are over the age of 30. They're not recruiting young people. They're not recruiting people from black and minority ethnicities. They're not recruiting working class people. There are no entrance points for those people in the current media. And if they do get in, they know what the rules are when they get in.
OK, so your model, members might pay you for premium content. Well, give us an idea of what kind of stories you'd be covering for free and what people would have to pay for.
The free stuff would be anything of worth that was newsworthy. The premium stuff would be specific exclusive interviews. It would be, it wouldn't be any of our investigations will always be fully available. That's what we want to get out there, our investigative journalism and anything we're aggregating.
So when you're talking about exclusive interviews, you're talking about YouTubes of celebrities?
Yeah, with celebrities, with this, Frankie Boyle or John McDonnell, or, whether it's political people or, interesting people, we'll put up a portion of those interviews, say a clip and say, here, this is very interesting. If you want to get the whole interview, you've got to join up. But more importantly, as I say, what you see with, say, Wikipedia or a lot of models that work on this is the basis is I drop them a tenner because you say, this is fantastic. This is a fantastic service and I'm happy to drop a bit of cash into. And that sounds airy-fairy, but the thing is the market research is there, and that is how modern tech companies work, and we need to think like modern tech companies because that's how people are interacting with the world and information. They're the people who shape our access to information. And
well, personally, I wouldn't donate to Wikipedia because I've seen quite a lot of biased editing, and they have basically a failure to correct erroneous edits and things like that. Their system for appeals, if you want, is almost non-existent, and I use another site called Wikispooks. But I mean, this is the great thing about the internet. As soon as it looks like something starts to be controlled by the establishment, something else almost mimicking it pops up. But anyhow, so getting back to your model, are you actually working from home then?
Yeah, I'm working from home, out and about. We've managed to raise funds through various grants and little bits and bobs, do work on the side, but mostly, through grants. And you can do comment and analysis from home, but, what's great is that we've got good journalists in the organisation who go out and they're doing investigative journalism. They're doing journalism that actually other people don't have the time to do. So one of our journalists, Cam Sandhu, who broke the story about the FCA and the whistleblower, because it takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of resources. Well, we're willing to put that time in. We've got people who'll go out, they'll find the stories, and we're lucky to be connected to people across the country that do.
Well, there's also another question about this kind of investigative journalism, and that is that traditionally in Britain it was done by the big television networks and ITV networks like Granada, Central Television, people like that had massive budgets with staff of maybe 30 people working on one programme, including a full-time barrister. But you surely can't actually match that.
Our plan is going forward in the next year, we've decided to come up with an app that will be called Real Funds, and it will enable people to fund investigative journalism. People will put, much the same as they would to editors, they'll put a pitch together saying, this is something I want to chase down. It may take a year, and this is how we're going to help fund it, Well,
I noticed that Byline Media, I don't know if you've come across them, are doing a similar sort of thing, and that expose about John Whittingdale came from that. So people say, yes, I want to see a bit of effort put into standing this story up and shoving it out to the national press. Is that the sort of thing you're looking at?
Absolutely. And also, another thing that was talked about, you were talking about the Bristol Cable. We've worked with the Bristol Cable, the Salford Star, and a lot of great local, radical, independent media sources. And one of the things we were talking about is doing independent investigations coordinated across the UK through these independent media organisations. So we bring them together, we put money in a pot and we share it out. So if there's something that has national significance, say it's something to do with housing, for instance, that there are particular housing interests that are actually similar in Bristol as they are in Manchester, Peel Holdings, maybe, for instance, who are a big housing company that own developments in both areas and have been caught doing some pretty dodgy stuff with councils. We can coordinate that across the country, utilising great journalists that are already out there. But yeah, as you say, that you see it with Byline. It's fantastic stuff what they're doing. The Centre for Investigative Journalism, the Bureau of Investigative Journalism. People are realising we need specialist investigative journalism, and that people need to be paid for that. There's some great people like Anthony Lowenstein, who's worth following and checking out. And he crowdfunded a year's work on following disaster capitalism in Papua New Guinea, for instance. And there's quite a few examples like this. So
but we had a discussion. I think it was about 18 months ago. Talking to some of the people who were working on those big old investigative shows, which were doing, big exposés, which had enormous ramifications, some of them, and really there's nothing like it anymore in terms of finance. I mean, you're talking about having to fund a team of maybe 15 people, probably for best part of several months, including legal counsel. I mean, you're talking about something like £500,000 to fund 1 half-hour investigative documentary. Insurmountable for a new media startup.
Absolutely. No, it's true. And in fact, we had a discussion on this. Real Media published a discussion between myself and Aaron Bastani from Novara Media, where we discussed the future of the BBC and what he suggested, and I concur with him. We can do so much, and I think we can set the agenda, new media. We can create a new model of doing journalism that I hope will grow and grow and grow. But certainly in the short term, that is not going to be anywhere near good enough, and probably not in the mid-term either. What we need to look at is the BBC, its funding, and when we're talking about changing the BBC, which Whittingdale is doing, we need to go exactly the opposite direction the BBC are doing, certainly within journalism. Can we use the huge budget that the BBC does have to support more independent journalism, to support more independent journalists, investigative journalists? There certainly are large pots of money there if we see that as a public good to be used by all for the benefits of all, instead of it being a political football to be kicked about by various governments. That is potentially a future. But yeah, I mean, currently in the short term, investigative journalism of that sort that you're talking about, the prospects look bleak, and it's a sad loss for this country. We need to step up to the plate.
So how do people find and follow what Real Media's up to online? I suppose it is only online, isn't it? We can't watch you on the television or anything like that.
No, you can't watch us yet. Someday soon we'll get there. You can find us at realmedia.press. You can find us at realmediagb on Twitter, or our Facebook is facebook.com/realmedia. So you can find us at on Facebook, Twitter. You can find us on Tumblr, SoundCloud, iTunes. You can find us at Real Media, and at the moment we're doing some good work. But what would be great to look out for is our launch in October. We're going to have some truly special stuff, some groundbreaking investigations to release, some really special contributors, and a brand new app that we've managed to get quite considerable funding for, that we hope will change the way that news is presented in this country.
So why does this all matter?
Why does it all matter? We need information to exist in a functioning democracy. I think there's been a real closure of that information, and we get little peeks into getting the necessary information, but often the debate is within a very narrow band, and I think it's very important to widen the debate, to give more people more access to information that's relevant to them, to the functioning of this democracy, and hopefully that can help us build a better world. I think it's the only way. We can't start building a better world from an uninformed position, and we've got a lot of huge challenges ahead of us that we need to tackle, right now.
You're listening to dialectradio.co.uk.